Parker Town Council at 7:02 p.m. on July 10th. All members of the council are present. Would you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. So we have something really special tonight, and that is our Parker Police Department Explorer Scouts. Chief, what was the award that they got? Well, come down and talk about it. Come down and talk.
I brought one of the advisors, Natalie, so she can talk about the competition, the program, and our cadet program, Explorer program.
All right, ma'am, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Tell us about this competition.
The competition was in Topeka. So our Explorer program is what the Parker Police Department helps these young men and women learn more about the jobs in law enforcement. And one of the things that they do as part of those jobs is they get to ride along with our officers. They train weekly at our department in laws and how to assist and function, and they train for competitions. And the last competition we just did was in Topeka, and I can proudly say they cleaned up. So, which was really, really nice.
Yeah, so there are a couple different awards that Topeka Police Department offered in the Capital Challenge. That's the name of the competition. Probably the most prestigious awards that we got were the top tactical team. And within the competition, there was a couple different tactical competitions. One being active shooter, undercover operations, and alarm response, which is a bank robbery at a bank gone wrong. And we placed first in each and every one of those, meaning that we surpassed all teams in the tactical aspect of this competition. There are a couple of other competitions that we placed in, some being auto theft, interview and interrogation, a couple other patrol style competitions. So overall, this team did exceptionally well. As a captain, I cannot be more proud of the team.
Same as in the boxing.
And as the chief. And I actually a lot of us started as explorers. So, this is a good path for our young adults to pursue a career in law enforcement.
Excellent. Well, and we just swore in a former explorer about 2 months ago now, and we just promoted a former explorer to sergeant. So, there's a good path for you all. So everyone in the audience, be looking at these folks to be protecting Parker in, 5 years? 6 years? Alex, you especially, right? You're ready to go now. All right.
He's getting ready.
Well, on behalf of the council, congratulations on this well-deserved honor. I know it was hard to fight. We saw the pictures, and they were incredible. You guys look like you worked yourselves up, and I'm sure you ate a good meal after that, slept a long time, and you're teenagers, so you sleep all the time. So. Congratulations. So we're going to get a council picture with you guys. All right. Okay, let's stand back, Alex. Okay, don't think you did. On the side. Maybe one more. This is how I decided.
Oh my gosh.
That was a long time.
I still look here. Okay. And do well to hold ourselves like police do? It's up to you. Okay.
Actually, maybe you should take one more step this way, please. One, two, three. One, two, three. And 1, 2, and 3. All right, thank you very much.
Let's hear it for our explorers.
Good job, Natalie.
It's coming.
All right. With that, we will go on to public comments. Public comment is an opportunity for town residents and other interested individuals to speak on items not on the agenda for tonight. This comment period is limited to the first 30 minutes of the meeting, and if we have any follow-up afterwards, we'll use whatever we need to at the end of the meeting. Comments are also taken by an email to the town clerk's office or any other way you want to make your public comments. But for tonight, I have no one signed up, so that doesn't mean anything. If there's anyone in the audience wishing to address the town council on anything, now's your chance. On items not on the agenda. All right, seeing none. And for you folks in the sun section, if you want to put your sunglasses on, you won't offend us. Totally get it. It'll go down eventually, so you won't offend anyone. All right, next up is reports, items, and comments from mayor and council. I am going to start to my far left. Councilmember Hefta.
The past couple of weeks, council members Barrington and Dyack and Wilkes and myself had the opportunity to, and Councilmember Hendricks, enjoy the CML conference, Colorado Municipal League Conference. That is the conference that brings together all elected officials and directors from across the state of Colorado in one conference every year. And it's its own lobbyist with regards to issues that come before the state legislature. So this past year, we all did come together on many issues to voice our concerns to the state legislature on many different bills. And that's headed up by Kevin Balmer. And then I had the opportunity to enjoy the Parker Farmers Market with Councilmember Wilkes and the mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Wilkes.
Yeah, so on top of that, I also was lucky enough to go to the Pace Center season reveal party where they rolled out all of these amazing shows and concerts and everything we have going on, and got my tickets for that. So I'm excited about that, and hopefully you all had a good 4th of July too.
Councilmember Dyack.
Thank you very much. One of my assignments is the Regional Council of Governments, Dr. Cog. We had a board meeting on the 21st. We talked about a comprehensive economic development strategy that will potentially benefit the communities within Dr. Cog with some partnership or economic development money, but that is a ways down the road. We also had a discussion on the Regional Transportation District, or RTD, zero fare for better air. No fees, no fares in July and August. So if you have a need to do light rail or bus, it's going to be free for the next couple of months. Attended Bike to Work Day on the 28th. Our staff who was there that I saw, Brooks, Sydney, and Ryan did a great job. I'm sure there were a host of others who helped make this event such a great success. I too attended the Parker Arts season announcement party. Kudos to our cultural arts director, Carrie Glassburn, for a great event. I think it broke records, and that is all, Mayor.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No updates.
Councilmember Barrington.
Thank you. I think everything that I've done has been covered also. Thank you.
Great. And a returning newbie, Councilmember Rivera. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much. Good to be back. I apologize, no updates. I was on vacation. So.
Excellent. My only update is I want to say to the town manager's office, for our communications, for our special events team, if you saw the Parker Skies on the 4th of July, that was amazing. What you didn't see was the wrangling all day long of them fighting. And, you know, one of the things that I'm very proud of the town of Parker, a lot of municipalities, a lot of cities cut their fireworks early, like 7 o'clock in the morning early, but our town of Parker stuck in. They wanted to give a show to the town, and they certainly did, and I appreciate it very much to you and your team. Also to the townspeople who added to the show around town, you know, kudos to you too for celebrating freedom. So, Madam Town Manager, anything to add to your team? Thank you. All right, with that, we will get on to business. Consent agenda items. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of the consent agenda items unless council votes to remove an item for individual discussion. Ordinances on the consent agenda are for introduction only and will not be removed for discussion. So council, you have agenda 5A through 5J on your consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items 5A through J, please.
Second.
Motion is made by Rivero, second by Hendricks. Rivero,
Aye.
Barrington,
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak,
Yes.
Wilkes.
Aye.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Just a note on the proclamations that the council just approved. Parks and Recreation Month for the town of Parker is July. So congratulations to all of our Parks and Recreation staff who build on those 75 miles of trails, all the open space, all the parks and the rec center, the field house, everything that you see and love about Parker. Congratulations to our team. It's very worthy that they're awarded this month. All right, next up is our public hearings. The first one is the Coyle Perkins property annexation and zoning. So I'm going to open that at 7:13 p.m. The Coyle Perkins property annexation and zoning continued from November 7th, 2022, February 21st, 2023, April 17th, 2023, and June 5th, 2023. And we have Julia Duncan presenting. And Julia, you do have an applicant with you tonight.
We do, and they have a presentation.
Great. So for those in the audience, just the way a public hearing works, we will hear from our staff and we'll ask questions. We'll ask the applicant to come up. The council will ask questions. We'll open it up for public hearing or public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to make a comment on this public hearing can come forward and do so. You have 3 minutes, and we'll just keep going till everybody has a chance. We'll then close the public hearing. We'll bring it back to the council for debate, question, argument, whatever they have to say, and then we'll take a vote on it. So, Julia, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me this evening. Before you is an ordinance approving and accomplishing the annexation of unincorporated property known as the Coyle Perkins property in Douglas County and the zoning of the property to planned development. Ooh, there it worked. The subject property consists of 33.4 acres in unincorporated Douglas County and is located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Stroh Road and Crowfoot Valley Road. The applicant is proposing to annex the parcel into the town. It is largely undeveloped except for a small single-family house and several accessory structures that are remnants of a previous agricultural use. The subject property is currently zoned A1, Agricultural 1, within Douglas County. The site is bounded to the east by a vacant parcel of land owned by Parker Water and Sanitation District, and to the south by the Meadowlark residential neighborhood and a private residence. To the west, across Crowfoot Valley Road, is the Looking Glass residential neighborhood, and to the north of the site, across Stroh Road, are Hunter's Chase condominiums. The applicant has submitted a rezoning application that is running concurrently with the annexation petition. As mentioned before, the property is currently zoned A1, Agricultural 1 within Douglas County. Consistent with the Town of Parker Municipal Code, the applicant has submitted a rezoning application that is statutorily required to run concurrently with the annexation petition. The parcel is proposed to be zoned Avalon Parker Planned Development. The property is adjacent to the current town boundary and wholly in the town's planning area as set forth in the General Land Use Plan map in the Parker 2035 Master Plan. The General Land Use Plan map establishes the future geographic boundaries of the town. The Parker 2035 Master Plan designates the intersection of Stroh Road and Crowfoot Valley Road as a neighborhood center, overlaying the medium-density residential character area. Higher density residential is appropriate in these centers as a transition between less intense residential areas and non-residential areas when developed as part of a mixed-use development, and when the design encourages residents to walk or bicycle to obtain goods and services. If approved, the annexation agreement ensures timing of commercial development submittals, the dedication of Planning Area 5, which is comprised of 4.7 acres of open space to the town, Douglas County school fees, trails, financial contribution equating to the cost of the Lemon Gulch Trail connection adjacent to the property, parks, and road construction. The property is eligible for annexation because it's located within the town's planning area, the urban growth boundary, and satisfies the contiguity requirements of state statute. On July 18, 2022, the Town Council approved Resolution Number 22042. That determined the annexation petition substantially complies with Colorado revised statutes. On September 6, 2022, the Town Council approved a resolution which determined the property was eligible for annexation. The town has identified the Quail property as a candidate for annexation through the 3 Mile Plan and the Master Plan. The annexation is consistent with the town's land use policies as expressed in both plans, and would fulfill the town's goal of actively pursuing annexations to allow for continuity of services within the master plan area. This is an overview, a brief overview and definition of what a planned development is. That's the zoning for the property. A planned development is the proposed zoning for the property and provides both a development plan and a development guide, which regulate things such as uses, bulk, height, lot coverage, and density, and that's just to name a few. We'll move into some of the specifics of the proposed zoning. The proposed Avalon Parker planned development would permit a maximum 343 residential dwelling units, commercial development, and associated parks and open space. The proposal would allow housing types, minimum lot areas, building heights, lot widths, required setbacks, and residential and commercial uses are delineated amongst the 5 proposed planning areas and are consistent with the straight zoning proposed in the land development ordinance for a mixed-use neighborhood. So for the residential, there would be a maximum of 343 dwelling units, a minimum of 8.7 acres for commercial area in Planning Area 1, 4.77 acres of parkland, and a minimum of 6.6 acres of open space. The development plan shows the area to be zoned PD and minimum park and open space dedications. Lot layout, street orientation, and alignment, and final park and open space locations will be determined with future submittals. Planning Area 1, which is adjacent to the intersection of Crowfoot Valley Road and Stroh Road, is designated as a mixed-use neighborhood and is intended to accommodate a mix of housing types at varied densities and supporting neighborhood-centric commercial activities, serving the needs of surrounding residents at a less intense, more walkable scale. The mixed-use district is intended to include both vertical and horizontal mixed-use development and can serve as a transitional district to more intense commercial mixed uses and non-residential districts and uses. Multi-tenant commercial development requirements have been included in the PD, and specifically 8.76 acres of commercial zoning. This planning area is consistent with the neighborhood center commercial requirements. Planning areas 2, 3, and 4 are multifamily residential and are intended to accommodate a variety of housing types and serve as transitional districts from the more intense mixed-use district of PA1 to the less intense residential uses to the south. The land use development standards in PA 2, 3, and 4 become more restrictive to respect the more sensitive single-family residences to the south. Maximum height on the southernmost residential portion of the property is 2 stories, equivalent in height to a single-family detached home. A minimum buffer for the southern properties of 30 feet is required along the southern property line, 5 feet more than the development design standards require 25-foot setback when adjacent to single family. A roadway buffer along Crowfoot Valley Road is also required. There are 9 criteria to evaluate a rezoning. These criteria ensure that a need exists, the proposal is consistent with the master plan, and there are adequate services to serve the proposed site. I'll touch on a few of those criteria. Number 2, the particular parcel of ground is indeed the correct site for the proposed development. As mentioned previously, the subject property is contiguous with the town boundary and is described in the 2035 General Land Use Plan as being located within the town's planning area boundary. Number 4, there have been significant changes in the area to warrant a zone change. The Denver metro area is home to approximately 2.8 million people today, and another 1 million people are expected in the metro area by 2035. Parker will continue to receive a share of this growth over the next 20 years. In addition, there have been significant residential growth to the south of this property and in Douglas County, including trails at Crowfoot, Looking Glass, and the Canyons. These neighborhoods will need commercial services. The existing agricultural zoning designation within unincorporated Douglas County is inconsistent with the master plan's character area designation for medium density residential and neighborhood center. After evaluating the zoning information, staff has determined that the proposal meets the 9 approval criteria set forth in the Land Development Ordinance. Staff has reviewed the proposal and has determined that the proposed Coyle-Perkins annexation petition and zoning application are consistent with the Parker 2035 master plan as to inclusion in the town, future use, intensity of development, and supporting infrastructure. They are also consistent with the town's land use policy of actively pursuing annexations to accommodate future growth and development while promoting efficient service delivery as annexation occurs. Utility providers have confirmed capacity and availability, and all notice requirements have been satisfied. On May 11th, 2023, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the proposed PD zoning and voted 5-2 to recommend that the Town Council approve the zoning. Staff and the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the annexation and zoning request. This concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. We also have the applicant's team of Norris Design as well as Avalon Bay here to present.
Great. Thank you, Julia. Start to my left with Councilmember Dyak.
No questions at this time, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Wilkes.
Yeah, so currently, if we, let's just go down that path, don't annex it in, and the developers still want to develop that, they could essentially go to the Douglas County Building Department, which has far less restrictive requirements and guidelines than what the town of Parker has. Is that correct?
That's correct. They could petition Douglas County to rezone the property and develop within the county.
Okay. And then one of the things that they're requesting with the multifamily, how many units per acre is that coming out to right about now?
It's a little less than 12 dwelling units per acre. I think it's about 11.96 specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hefta.
On the proposal that they provided on the screen, is there adequate egress and ingress and in and out of that area?
So engineering did evaluate the property. There are required road improvements through the annexation agreement, funding and the physical improvements, and also through the site plan process, ingress and egress would be evaluated through a traffic impact analysis once we had a final unit count.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hendricks.
No questions at this time.
Councilmember Barrington.
No questions. You were very thorough. Thank you.
Great. And Councilmember Rivero.
Yeah, no questions.
Great. All right, so applicant, you're welcome to come forward. If you will state your name and address for the record and which entity you represent, whether it's Norris Design or Avalon Bay. I think that's the two. Right. Okay.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Todd Nicotra. I'm with Avalon Bay Communities, address 5050 South Syracuse, Denver, Colorado. Mayor and members of the council, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you this evening. My team and I are thrilled to be here tonight to share with you our vision and plan for the 33 acres of land at the corner of Crow, Foot Valley, and Stroh Roads. Before jumping in, I want to extend my gratitude to the Community Development Department, Town Attorney's Office, and other town staff and departments for their hard work over the last 2 years. We have had more meetings, phone calls, and Zoom discussions than I can count, so I want to thank town staff for all of their efforts. I'm joined this evening by several colleagues and consultants. In this presentation, you will hear from Andrew Johnson, my colleague at Avalon Bay, Daniel Jennings from Norris Design. We also have members of the entire design team present, including our architect, Studio PBA, our civil engineer, Harris Coker Smith. Additionally, we're represented by our attorneys from Ott & Johnson. The bulk of the presentation, and finally, I'd like to point out that Bill Coyle, one of the owners of the property, is in the audience with us tonight. The bulk of the presentation this evening will come from Andrew and Daniel, but before I turn it over to them, I'd like to provide some history on the project and also share a little bit about our company with you. The first pre-application for this project was submitted in the summer of 2021. Over the course of the following 9 months, we worked with staff to modify our plan and submitted 2 more pre-applications. By May of 2022, we had worked out most of the kinks in the concept plan, so we proceeded to a formal application. Over the course of the past year, we've worked closely, not only with staff from the town of Parker, but also with staff and the board of Parker Water, as well as the Mile High Flood District. So while this is our first time formally presenting in front of the council, this is a project that has been in the works for quite some time. And now just a little bit about Avalon Bay before I hand the reins over to Daniel. We are a developer, owner, and operator of high-quality apartment communities throughout the United States. We've been at this for a while now with over 30 years of experience. I joined the company 11 years ago on the East Coast and then relocated with my family about 5 years ago to start an office for Avalon Bay here in the great state of Colorado. We've been very busy over the last 5 years, both acquiring and developing communities along the Front Range. I'm not going to read everything on the slide here, but the one thing I do like to point out that makes us a little bit different from some of our peers is that we are a long-term owner. We don't build, sell, and move on. We own and operate our communities for the long term, which means that we pay very close attention to quality and upkeep so that our communities stand the test of time. If the town council grants approval for us to move forward, I think that you will be very pleased with the quality of the development and the benefits that it provides to the community. And now I'm going to turn it over to Daniel.
And Mr. Jennings, if you would state your name and address for the record, too.
Yes, my name is Daniel Jennings. I'm with Norris Design, a member of the project team, and my address is 1101 Bannock Street, Denver, Colorado. Could you go to the next slide, please? Oh, perfect. Okay. All right. So as Julia mentioned, our application involves annexing our site into the town. And as you can see with this map, our property is surrounded by the town's boundary on nearly every side, with some land that belongs to Parker Water and Sanitation District directly to our east. The site has long been identified for annexation in the town's planning documents, and it is located completely within the town's planning area boundary. The other part of our application, of course, is zoning the site. You annex it, you zone it. So to give a little context for that, I think there's really 3 important things to point out. First, our zoning is an opportunity to realize the unfulfilled neighborhood center designation of our site in the 2035 master plan. Second, our proposed PD will address the need for multifamily and commercial services in the surrounding area. And finally, our proposed zoning achieves several goals of the 2035 master plan, which Julia covered in her staff report. As Julia mentioned, the master plan identifies this intersection of Stroh and Crowfoot Valley Road as a neighborhood center, but a neighborhood center has yet to be developed at this intersection. Instead, the other 3 corners of the intersection have all been built out as residential neighborhoods: Looking Glass, Anthology, Hunter's Chase, leaving our site as the final opportunity to provide that neighborhood center that the master plan calls for. The master plan describes a neighborhood center as providing neighborhood-serving commercial and high-density supportive residential to create a mixed-use development where residents can walk or bike to obtain goods and services. And that really is the foundation upon which our PD was written. We intend our zoning to allow for the creation of a mixed-use development of commercial and supportive multifamily uses, 2 land uses that are in short supply if you look at the surrounding area. Here's a map of the existing commercial development within 2 miles of our site. And as you can see, there's a lack of commercial within the immediate vicinity of our property. This further emphasizes the opportunity that we have to provide commercial services with our zoning. As well, the demand, oh, I've skipped ahead. Sorry. One more, please. Oh, great. Thank you. As well, the demand for high-quality rental housing is increasing, but again, if we look what's existing, that supportive multifamily residential that the neighborhood center designation calls for, it is few and far between in the surrounding area. just responding to me. Thank you. So our proposed zoning is really an opportunity to meet the need for those two land uses and to provide that desired mix of residential and neighborhood-serving commercial uses to ultimately achieve that unfulfilled vision of a neighborhood center. Our plan divides the site into 5 planning areas. At the northern end of our site is Planning Area 1 with a land use of mixed use. This zoning will allow for the neighborhood-serving commercial uses envisioned in the master plan. To the south of Planning Area 1 are Planning Areas 2, 3, and 4, all of which carry a zoning of multifamily residential. Our plan envisions a park open to the public located at the center of the community. And then at the southern end of our site is Planning Area 5, which is planned as natural open space along Lemon Gulch. At this point, I'd like to hand it off to Andrew Johnson with Avalon Bay. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Johnson, address 5050 South Syracuse, Denver, Colorado. Great to be here tonight. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Let me jump to the next slide here. So as Todd shared, we've been working on this project since the summer of 2021. And from discussions with town planning, feedback from council executive sessions, a neighborhood meeting, and meetings with key stakeholders and neighbors, we understand that transitions between land uses and intensities, along with compatibility with existing neighborhood characteristics, are a critical priority on this site. To that end, we believe we've designed a PD that thoughtfully integrates with current adjacent uses. First, our maximum height steps down from the neighborhood center commercial and multifamily and adjacent multifamily area in Planning Area 1 and Planning Area 2 at 4 stories, scaling down to 3 stories in the center of the site, down to 2 stories at the southwest of the site, matching the typical height context of nearby single-family uses. Second, the zoning introduces key buffer requirements beyond what exists in Parker's land development ordinance and development design standards. So working from the top counterclockwise here, the PD requires a roadway buffer between Crowfoot Valley Road and Planning Areas 2, 3, and 4, increasing in magnitude as you move from northeast to southwest. Along the southwest property line, the PD provides a minimum 30-foot buffer. Finally, to the southeast, you see Planning Area 5, which is the natural buffer of Lemon Gulch, which will be donated to the town and permanently remain open space. Now, I would like to dive a little deeper into the setback on the southwest edge of the property, as this is the only location where we're directly adjacent to a parcel that contains a single-family use. Given the sensitivity of this adjacency, we've met with the neighbors, the Wilson family, on multiple occasions to discuss how we can respect the privacy and experience of their property. Now, we understand and appreciate their concerns and are committed to being a good neighbor in this matter. In this area, we have provided a 30-foot setback, which exceeds the requirements of both the LDO and the development design standards. Now, although today we're discussing zoning, we have already included in our site plan significant visual buffers with large trees and landscaping in this area, as well as a physical buffer privacy fence. During the site plan process, we plan to continue to work with the neighbors and staff to deliver appropriate treatment to this sensitive buffer area. Now, as you can see here, delivering this minimum 30-foot buffer area achieves a minimum distance of about 220 feet from the nearest single-family home to our 2-story building area. That overall buffer of 220 feet is again depicted here for an aerial view. Now, although the focus of tonight's hearing is the annexation and zoning, we did want to share what the zoning may allow and how we envision developing the site. What you see here is our conceptual site plan depicting that. While this is still a work in progress, and we're early in the process of the planning review process, we wanted to share the highlights of the development. To the northeast of the site, you see the commercial development area. While we will be the master developer for the entire site, we do plan to sell this portion of the site to a commercial developer who specializes in that type of development. Now, we've worked closely with town planning to craft zoning for this over 8-acre area that will support neighborhood retail, services, offices, and recreation and restaurant amenities. This delivers on the town's goal of a neighborhood center at the Stroh and Crowfoot intersection. To the southwest of the commercial development area, you see 3 blocks of residential development, incrementally reducing height from 4 stories closest to the commercial area down to 3 stories in the center of the site and ultimately to 2 stories adjacent to single-family areas matching the scale there. Finally, this site delivers major public amenities including parks, open space, and trail connections. Public and community benefits on this project are substantial and are listed in more detail here. I did want to point out some of the unique ones to this site that do go above and beyond typical Parker requirements specific to this particular site. For instance, we'll be providing necessary floodplain improvements in Lemon Gulch at a cost of over $2.5 million and donating nearly 5 acres of this natural terrain as open space to the town. And we will also be contributing about $500K for an existing regional trail crossing project. And another notable benefit here I would like to highlight is that we will be building and maintaining over 2 acres of public park at a cost of over $1 million, fully available to the public. With that, I'd like to pass back to Todd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Daniel. I'll be very brief, as you've heard a lot from us already. Thank you for your time this evening. As you can see here, this summarizes some of the key benefits of our proposal, carrying out the vision of the master plan, addressing a need for housing and commercial, and providing a large public park. So I'll wrap it up with that and say thank you very much, and we're here for any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you, Todd. We'll start with questions to my far right. Councilmember Rivera, questions?
Thank you. We'll go to Julie. Maybe they want to fill in after. You mentioned commercial triggers. Can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Sure. So there's a number of commercial standards within the planning area 1 section of the development plan. And I'm going to just read it because I think that'll be the clearest way to convey it. A multi-tenant commercial building, not less than 3 tenants, with a minimum of 8,000 square feet in total size, shall be built no later than the 3rd commercial building within planning area 1. So we don't have a number of one-off pad sites. We did want to incorporate a multi-tenant minimum square foot commercial building within planning area 1. In addition, the annexation agreement triggers phasing for this applicant must make this pad ready prior to the recordation of the first final plat for the property.
Okay. And then one more real quick. A few mentions to the public park, and it's even demonstrated here, but it's not a true regional park, is it? It's a neighborhood park that would be owned and operated by Avalon Bay?
Correct, but it would be accessible and open to the public.
But it's not a Town of Parker asset?
It's not a Town of Parker asset. Planning Area 5, the open space will be dedicated to the town.
Of course, absolutely. Okay, I just want to make that, that for the record, for the public, that even though it is noted, and Avalon Bay, I'm sure, is an extreme wonderful partner and won't kick a public out, it's not a Town of Parker asset. It will be an Avalon Bay asset.
That's
Thank you.
correct.
Right. Councilmember Barrington for the applicant.
So this parcel is shaped kind of, it's a unique shape, and I would imagine it might have been a little tricky for anybody to come in here and develop this, because it's also bordered by, is it to the east by the Parker Water? So can you talk to us a little bit about this?
Sure. Happy to address that. Yeah, it's certainly, we call it a foot-shaped site. It's shaped kind of like an ankle. It does present challenges. Truthfully, the biggest challenge is the topography. There's a lot of grade change along this site. It generally slopes from the bottom left of the screen to the upper right. So that's sort of the direction of it. So the retail area is at the lowest elevation at the corner there. So that combined with the open space, the gulch, that does present some challenges. That, of course, has a lot of topography, but that of course, is going to be improved with those floodplain improvements and dedicated to the town. But we understood the importance of the block system that's in the design guidelines, and so we tried to respect that with these 3 different residential planning areas within the site, and we feel good about the place where we've landed.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Hi, can you speak to what the residential units would look like from the, or potential to look like?
Sure, happy to do that. So really, we understood as well from from both staff as well as feedback from an executive session a couple of years ago that what we heard was the town wanted diversity, not just all the same. And so what we've got here are 3 different product types. At the north end, closest to the commercial, we have 4-story elevator-served buildings. So those will have enclosed corridors with elevators in them, so convenient for people who don't want to use stairs, and of course close to the retail as well. The middle block are more traditional 3-story walk-up apartments. However, they are what I would say is a higher quality 3-story walk-up because they have enclosed corridors. They don't have open breezeways. These are very attractive buildings where you walk in a conditioned corridor to access the home. And then finally, on the southernmost block, those are just 2-story buildings, so they're almost like large houses. And many of those are what I would call direct entry, so that you can sort of park in the garage at the ground floor and walk right into a particular unit. So 3 different product types across the site.
Thank you.
Welcome. Councilmember Dyak.
Thank you very much. I'd like to focus in on PA1, the commercial piece. Do you have a timeline to market that, or do you have, are you marketing it now and you have interest in that? What's the thought?
Yes, great question. So we were waiting to formally market it until we hopefully get approval on the annexation and zoning. But yes, we actually have a listing agreement that we're ready to sign. And we've spoken to a couple of commercial developers who are interested in developing it. So we are confident that there is going to be demand for neighborhood serving commercial here and that it will get built.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wilkes.
Yeah, I have a few questions. So specifically on PA4 to start with, I know that I'm looking at the aerial and I'm familiar with the area. There's a tree farm that's existing there. And I know that you guys are doing the 30-foot setback or proposing that, and that's more than what we're asking. But for the sake of the single-family residence that is to the south of it that's existing there, have you guys considered doing more of a setback and keeping more of those existing trees in there that are already starting to mature, that already provide privacy, and will just continue to develop even more privacy versus ripping them out, putting in brand new trees, and putting in a 6-foot privacy fence?
Sure. Yep. So we've considered this for sure. We've spoken with staff as well. So one of the challenges on this site is because of all of the topography, all of the off-site improvement requirements with traffic and road widening, there's a lot of cost associated with the development. So to make it viable, we need a certain level of density to have the project economically feasible. And so we've tried to be as mindful as we can about how we treat that buffer area, but increasing it dramatically more would impact the viability of the project. So our approach has been to be as thoughtful as we can about how we treat that area. And as you might have seen in the presentation, the distance to the actual home there is 190 feet from the property line. So there's quite a bit of buffer already existing in that area.
Okay. And then on PA2, you guys had stated, and on PA1 as well, that the max height would be 4 stories. Can you tell me what you're thinking the actual build height will be at that?
4 stories on the
actual footage.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, gosh, I'd have to point to our architect to help me out with this one. Robert?
I would say 50 feet.
About 50 feet.
Okay, and then my last question, with the multifamily that's there, how many dedicated parking spaces do you have for each unit and for guest parking? Because I know that that's a big concern with our citizens, especially with apartments and multifamily, is not enough parking and heavy traffic.
Certainly. I'm going to turn to Daniel, maybe. Do you know that off the top of your head? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I do not remember off the top of my head. There would be sufficient parking provided with the site plan. Yeah, we understand that that's a concern, and so it's something we would certainly take into consideration and, of course, follow the town's development design standards in the LDO.
We also have a draft site plan. We could get you the answer to what we actually have planned. We just don't know it off the top of our head. So we actually do have a number.
So I think Daniel has a number. Yes.
I'm
sorry.
I also do not have the precise number, but what I can tell you is that it surpasses the town requirements for what parking is provided. Because interestingly, on this site, as you see, with the block layout, we really have homes spread out through the site. So there is we've really built in additional redundancy beyond what's required by the town for the exact reason you're talking about. You know, just because we have extra parking spaces on the other side of the site, that wouldn't necessarily help a resident. So I don't have the precise answer for you. I can tell you it exceeds significantly what the town would require on.
Okay, and do you know what our town requirements are for parking on multifamily?
For multifamily, I believe it depends.
Julie, before you answer, I think we'll get to that, if this passes through, we'll get to that at the site plan
Okay.
portion of it.
Okay.
So let's pin it till then, okay? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do you have more questions?
No, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Councilmember Hepta.
Well, I want to thank Councilmember Wilkes for that question because that is a very important question. As you know, if you've been paying attention to the last legislative session, some of those housing issues came up with regards to parking on streets and in neighborhoods, and that's a big issue in Parker. So with today's costs, to elaborate, and I'll get to the question, a couple of questions, you do have to plan for at least 2 or 3 or 4 people living in an apartment to be able to afford it. So I really do hope you've planned for at least 2 people to be living in that apartment or that home, 2 driving age adults, because again, that is an issue and we wouldn't want to see any overflow anywhere else. There is a soccer park across the street. So I think we do need the answer to that question at some point in time. So as far as the public park is concerned, again, have you planned for all ages of all residents, from seniors wanting to live in an apartment, to new families starting up, to people getting out of college? Have you planned your park around that thought?
Yes, great question. So the park itself, we have a concept plan for it at this point. We actually did share that with staff. We started to work on that at this point. But it's going to be a beautiful park with a variety of different features for people of all ages. It hasn't, again, it will be fully designed during the site plan process, but what we're envisioning is a playground for young people, so kids can play, some passive sort of seating areas, potentially an amphitheater for performances. There's a variety of there's a menu of options I know that the town provides that we can choose from. And we're actually really excited about planning that out because we think it's going to be a great benefit, not just to our community, but to the town of Parker.
And just my plug on this, more shade structures, more benches.
Got it.
Okay.
Noted.
Keep that in mind.
Mr. Mayor, one more.
It's very
Noted.
hot in the state of Colorado.
I agreed, especially today.
Okay, and then the last question today, because I'm going to come back around on that, right? The mixed use. What type of businesses how many, and what would you envision in that spot?
Great question. We've spoken to 2 different commercial developers so far and a trusted broker as well about what we think there's demand for there. And there's a lot of different uses that could be there. It could be a small restaurant, shop. There's probably demand for a bank, gas station, a variety of different neighborhood serving uses.
Okay, so it could be also sort of a number of businesses as well, like a corner like you have at Hess Road, where you have a number of businesses.
That's the intention, that's the hope, right? We want people who live not only at the community, but in the neighboring single-family homes to be able to walk or bike and enjoy the commercial in the corner there.
Okay, thank you.
My
Bring
pleasure.
it back to Councilman Rivera for a question.
Thank you. Again, this is a annexation and zoning hearing, and I appreciate your willingness to bend the lines to ensure that you be a good neighbor by welcoming you into this community possibly. With that, you talked about the topography, and you talked about the rise in the fall from essentially the southwest down to Stroh, correct?
Correct.
So it goes up the ankle. Or it goes down the ankle. Yeah, the foot's the tallest part?
The toe is the highest part.
Okay.
The heel's up top there. Yeah, that's the lowest part, actually.
So in that question then about your grading, do you plan to maintain that slope and build so then your height is even more, you got 4 stories that happens to be 25 feet lower than a two-story building, suddenly you have a consistent roof line. Is that a thought process, or is that something you're looking at?
So honestly, what we're looking at is, taking the topography and working with it to the best of our ability. So that means flattening areas for buildings.
Of course.
Right, so just flatten, retaining wall or slope, another flat area, another retaining wall and slope. In terms of the height of the 4-story buildings relative to those 3 stories, I guess I'd have to look at the plan to get a precise number.
I think it's more of a site plan question, but you
Yeah,
mentioned
it's a fair
the
question.
topography a couple times, and since it is a factor for, frankly, your bottom line and to make it pencil, I just was wondering if that topography is going to come beneficial to the citizens that live to the south and to the west of you.
I think the biggest benefit is, for the folks living in planning area 2 in those, 4-story elevator served buildings, obviously there's less topography for them to get from their building to the retail. And again, those are the elevator served buildings as well, so that's beneficial for if perhaps someone's elderly and they don't want to do the stairs and they want to be able to go and buy an ice cream cone at the corner, shop, they can do that quite easily.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
All right, council, any other questions? None? All right, thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We will go ahead and open this up for public comment now at 7:52. If anyone from the public would like to make a comment on this annexation, please come forward, state your name. Come on down, sir. State your name and address for the record. I'll give you 3 minutes on the timer right above me.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for having us here this evening. My name's Carl Wilson. I live at 7600 Crowfoot Valley Road. I am that south property that we've been talking about.
Go ahead.
I want to just make a little statement to y'all. So when we moved to, my wife, Wanda, is here. We're married 46 years. We're both Colorado natives. In 1988, we moved to Parker, looking for that small town atmosphere and small town Parker with a low density atmosphere. Boy, things have changed since that happened, since 1988. We've seen some big changes. I know that the present city council and planning members have not done all the damage to rural Parker, but continues to overbuild. In 1988, the master plan we reviewed prior to purchasing had a golf course on Crowfoot, with Stroh Road continuing to I-25 as an alternate access to Parker. Master plans mislead buyers that choose a location that they'd like to stay in 35 years like we have, and mislead buyers, and the city council and planners can change this without any notification at all to the property owners. That seems wrong to me. According to the Douglas County Master Plan of 2035 that was adopted, I believe, by Parker in 2006, had specifically stated that Crowfoot Valley Road was to be protected by maintaining rural roadside character and to use open space to create community separation and buffer areas. The way the town acquired these rights to expand the city limits, as you know, it stopped at Stroh Road. They used a road maintenance agreement to expand the town 1 mile south to include Crowfoot. They had no connecting properties other than a road maintenance agreement to extend the town of Parker. So be it. While we were sleeping. Douglas, and at this time, Douglas County had a requirement to have like-kind zoning, which means rural. It was all Ag 1 at the time, so it should have been some sort of agricultural development. That didn't happen. The Crowfoot Valley approving high densities. How did we get from rural to high density in one property line? That seems absurd to me. There's not enough infrastructure to accommodate all this growth. This 7 acres or whatever in the corner with a 7-Eleven and a liquor store is not going to give the community what they need for infrastructure. You need to get a grocery store out there somewhere close. There's no bus transportation out there. There's no way for these people to get anywhere but walk. And they won't have this commercial development for who knows how long. So please consider these issues. One more thing to bring up. As we all know, water has become a major issue. It appears that nobody wants to address this issue and continues to approve development, ignoring the water issues. There's a big issue with water, as we all know. Please consider these issues before approving more and more development, filling in all of our open space, and if nothing else, please protect our property with additional buffer and possibly a larger fence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Hi, my name is Wanda Wilson. I live at 7600 Crowfoot Valley Road, previously known as 6900 Crowfoot Valley Road, for unincorporated Douglas County Ag 1 property for the last 35 years. I am begging City Council and planners to consider the major impact to our property with this heavy density proposed multifamily apartment renters. The renters, not homeowners. Not sure if you all are aware, but at least our neighbors at the town of Castle Rock, city council members and planners revised their ordinance title 17 with a new chapter 17.51, specifically calling out multifamily residentials development when butted up against a rural property or unincorporated property, whereas they recognize the need for proper buffers between non-like property uses requiring walls and heavy landscape between unlike property use. It does appear that Parker City Council has classified our property for the 30-foot setback requirement for when an existing residential development is present. Please make note that 7600 Crowfoot Valley Road property is not an existing residential looking glass or Meritage development area. Not the same whatsoever. And thus our requirement for a true buffer zone, not just a 30-foot setback with a few trees in between, as has been currently described in their planning of these apartment buildings. At a minimum, we require a buffer zone with the installation of an 8-foot solid fence and a 60-foot setback in order to provide a clear separation between 7600 Crowfoot Valley Road and these apartment rentals, as the unlike uses are significant. We do not want Avalon Bay apartment renters trespassing onto our property. And yes, it'll happen with no barriers to provide clearly indication to these renters that this is not an open space, that they cannot let their dogs and kids roam on. And oh, by the way, I had no idea we're going to have concerts in this park either. So that's going to be a little bit of an issue. It should be Avalon's duty to put up a wall and a safety barrier and a further setback to protect our property. These apartments are looking in our backyard. Right in our backyard. I don't care if I have 100 feet or 90 feet. They're all facing my backyard. So with that, it should be Avalon's duty to protect that. I know they're trying, but come on, it's renters. They don't live here. I would like to ask each of you to please take the time to consider our requests for protecting our property, the value of our property, our privacy, and our land use. I did put 2 documents. I've met with them about from the beginning. I have 2 documents that should be from us in your city council packet for further definitions of our concerns.
Mrs. Wilson, if you could wrap up your comments.
Yep, with this large-scale apartment. Thank you for the 3 minutes while they got 2 years.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And Miss Wilson, my mother-in-law's name was Wanda, so every time I hear that name, it brings a smile. So. All right. Anybody else wishing to make public comment? Mr. Trevey. Let me get my clock set here. There we go.
Good. Mr. Mayor, members of Town Council, Mitch Treby Commercial, 10510 Dransfeld here in Parker. Thank you for the time and the opportunity to just make a couple of brief comments. I've got a son that's 15 years old who wasn't even born when I started representing this property. So we've been working with the property owner, Mr. Bill Coyle, for over 15 years to find the right fit for this property. And over the years, we've had just about all the single-family residential developers, Meritage and Taylor Morrison and Century and all these folks looking at how to best develop the property, but none of them could really make the property pencil or come up with a plan that was suitable to comply with the town's master plan. And although at times the master plan becomes dated, a lot of times it also represents a good future vision. And so it comes down to timing on this property. One thing in the land business, you do learn how to be patient. And so over the years, as we've seen different developers look at developing the property, none of their vision, none of their projects seemed to make sense. They couldn't accommodate the mixed use as envisioned by the town's master plan. And so at some point, it would have to come down to somebody who could not only deliver on the town's master plan, but also endure a lot of the offsite expenses that are associated with the development of this property. Between the improvement of Lemon Gulch, road improvements on Stroh and on Crowfoot, and burying utility lines and participating in trail connections, et cetera, those offsite improvements actually exceed the value of the property by more than just a few points. So finding the right developer for this property to not only execute on the vision for the town's master plan, but also to make this thing pencil has taken some time. And so when I first met with the folks at Avalon Bay, I explained to them that if you're going to be working with the town of Parker, they're not going to want to see just a bunch more barracks, 3-story garden-style walk-up. They're going to need to see some creativity, some varied product type, and you're going to have to deliver on the commercial. And so they've worked with the town. I've been with them for the last 2 years, representing the property owner. And I think they've done a great job of not only delivering on what it is that the town has envisioned for this corner, but they have worked hard in working with the property owners to the south in creating that buffer. I think the point to take into consideration is that 2-story product that they've got in planning area 4 is no higher, no taller than a traditional single-family residential home like what exists with the Meritage product. So I think they've done a good job, and I think they've worked well with the town of Parker. Special thanks to Julia. She's been there for the whole period, just working hand in hand with the folks at Avalon Bay. And I think they've done a good job on delivering what it is that the town needs to see. And we're looking forward to helping them deliver on the right commercial developer for that corner. Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to make public comment? All right. Seeing none, we're going to close the public comment at 8:04 and close the public hearing at 8:04 as well. Council, we'll bring it back to you for debate, comments, but first I want to read into the record what we are commenting on. So the first is ordinance number 2.281 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance approving and accomplishing the annexation of contiguous unincorporated territory known as the Coyle Perkins property in Douglas County, and ordinance number 3.361 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance zoning certain property within the town of Parker, Colorado, known as the Coyle Perkins property, to PD Plan Development District pursuant to the Town of Parker Land Development Ordinance, and amending the zoning ordinance and map to conform therewith, as well as an annexation agreement. So I'll start back in my same order.
Mr. Mayor, before you go to deliberation, generally we allow the council to ask any comment, if they have any final questions for the...
We're going to their comments. I just didn't read those in the beginning.
Questions and give the applicant an opportunity to address the public comment as well.
Okay. So, council, do you want to ask questions of the applicant or comments first? What's your pleasure?
I have an additional question.
For the applicant?
Julia?
Okay. Go ahead.
I just want to point this out. Recently,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but can you also reopen the public hearing if we're taking in additional testimony?
I will. We'll reopen the public hearing at 8:06 for continued testimony.
So, to make a long story short, I went on vacation to my, in North Dakota, and the neighbor put up it must have been an 8-foot fence. It's pretty tall, which probably doesn't comply with anything in that little town of Grand Forks, North Dakota. And so we're talking about a 6-foot fence here. So my question to you is, have we contemplated in your working with Avalon Bay the requirements of a higher fence? Is there a requirement for a fence at all? Can you talk about the fence and how we arrived at 6 feet?
Absolutely. So we haven't, there was a site plan submitted to the town, but per the fact that this had not come to council yet for annexation consideration or zoning, the site plan was deemed incomplete and has not been reviewed or evaluated by staff. The fencing issue would be something we would evaluate through the site plan approval process to ensure that it met our development design standards for adequate screening, for materials, for any impacts it might have on, the neighbors, because shade impacts can go both ways. So that's something we would evaluate through the site plan process. I believe the 6 feet that was proposed by the applicant tonight was a graphical representation of what they might consider in their submittal.
Okay, so there's no actual requirement for the footage of the fence right now. There's no, okay. And so can I ask a question of Avalon Bay? Okay.
Yes.
So how did you arrive at the 6 foot, and would you be open to considering a higher fence? Because my husband's 6'1", and I know that's not that tall.
Yes.
But I do know the 8-foot or 10-foot fence that I witnessed this past week is pretty tall.
Yep.
This one neighbor, boy, you couldn't even see into a window in the house. It was so tall, but it seemed adequate to me. 6 foot doesn't, it's not that tall.
Sure. Yep. So yes, the answer is yes. We will build a taller fence, and I'll go on record and say that right here. We can put it in the zoning, however you want to memorialize that. But the answer is yes.
You can consider and take into account the homeowner's desire for, say, an 8-foot fence or a 10-foot fence.
Yes.
You can do that in your.
We can do that. We can do a taller fence. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Wilkes, any questions?
Well, I do, but I don't know if this is the right.
It's sure.
Okay.
We're still, go for it.
It's more just
Wild, Wild West.
clarification with you. The way I understand it is right now, the Douglas County Master Plan says that it could be, hang on, where's my notes? It could be urban level development, which is up to 5 stories. Like we all know the awesome storage units that we have here that was Douglas County. It could be up to 5 stories. It could be storage units. It could be literally anything because they don't have to come to us even though they're on a fringe. Is that correct?
Yes, could be, it's urban level designated, but it is zoned A1 agricultural. But if they were to go to Douglas County, they could request that be changed and they do development on that parcel.
Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, if we're wanting to protect Parker and protect our residents that are already here, we have more control over what gets built and what's there and the height requirements and the design and the setbacks than if we didn't and they chose to go to Douglas County. And from what we've all learned, Douglas County doesn't ask our permission before they put 5-story storage units next to a residential family, correct?
Correct, and this development plan was tailored to be in alignment with our new land development ordinance modernization, so it has consistency with our overall town codes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Dyak, any further questions?
I'm just trying to think about the public comment. So I guess just a very high level question, Julia. The applicant has met or exceeded our land development ordinances or what we've asked of them. Is that a fair statement?
Correct, with dedications of parks and open space, and then setbacks along Crowfoot Valley too. One of the comments was respecting that corridor, there is an increased setback in the southern portion that tailors down as you go to the north. So there were a number of items that the developer complied with.
Okay. I heard a lot about Douglas County and Parker plans. We have our own plan, and Douglas County has their own plan. I don't think we adopted the Douglas County plan. Is that Mr. Fusa?
I love how he's already walking down to answer.
Sorry, Councilmember Dyke, I didn't know which way to turn.
Yeah, no.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm just trying to. I'm trying to think back to public comment, and we, in terms of master plans, Douglas County has a master plan. Town of Parker has a master plan. We go by our master plan. Is that and Douglas County has their own. So we don't adopt Douglas County. We are the Town of Parker, and we go by our plan. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair and accurate statement.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Is there anything you would like to add to this?
No, and I would say
as
there
you
was
were-
reference prior to, for example, a concept called community separation buffers or separation buffers. That was a concept that actually was codified in an intergovernmental agreement that the town had with Douglas County, which required certain design standards for development along the town's boundary. And that was something that the town supported. When it came up for renewal, Douglas County decided not to proceed or renew with that, and they left that agreement. So that very important and effective planning tool was lost because the county withdrew from that intergovernmental agreement.
Okay. Anything else that we missed? I think a lot of information came very fast in the collective 6 minutes. I just want to be mindful of trying to provide answers.
No, I think that both presenters and the council, through your comments and questions, have, I think, provided a thorough picture of the proposal and the issues around it. And we've heard from the public, including the Wilsons, who were the closest adjoiner, and their concerns and their comments.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hendricks?
I have
any
a
further questions?
question for staff. I seem to recall this parcel had a requirement of X amount of acres for commercial, I think 11, but it's less than that. Can you, I don't know if you're aware of that, can you go into the detail why it's less or how it's arranged? And maybe.
I was not familiar with a previous 11-acre requirement for the commercial. What was negotiated through the PD and annexation process was that allocation of the 8.76. We do require a minimum of 33% in those neighborhood center commercial areas to be allocated to commercial. About 5 acres of this site are part of the floodplain and therefore cannot be used to calculate density. So that's why you see the 11.96 acreage and that 5-acre dedicated parcel to the south. So that may have impacted the amount of developable land on the commercial property at the corner.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Barrington, any further? Okay, Councilman Rivera?
No questions.
All right. Representatives of Avalon Bay or Norse Design, any follow-up to what you heard in public comment or questions up here? Okay.
Thank you. Just to reiterate what we said in the presentation, which is that we want to be the best neighbor that we can be, and I want to go on record that we are committed to working with both staff and the neighbors regarding an appropriate treatment of that setback area.
So thank you. And Director Fusa? You can have the last word during the public comment period.
Thank you, Mayor. I was trying to avoid it. But on the issue of fence height, wanted to make sure that the council has accurate information as it considers the annexation petition and zoning application. I did a quick review while I was sitting over there of the fence standards and regulations in our zoning code. The standard is a height limit for fences of 6 feet, but the land development ordinance does allow an applicant to apply for a variance for fence height beyond 6 feet. So there is a mechanism for any applicant, including this one, in connection with the site plan, to request a variance for fence height greater than 6 feet, let's say an 8-foot fence. That variance request will go to council for a decision. So there is a mechanism, but I want to be clear, the height standard is 6 feet, but there is a mechanism by variance application to go higher than that in response to the discussion and the request from Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, depending on how the council decides tonight.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'm looking at our town attorney. I'm going to close the public hearing
Thank you.
at 8:16. I got the ahead. All right, we're going to come back to the council for final comments and then debate and then a vote. So we'll start to my left. Councilmember Dyak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 9 criteria that we have to utilize to consider and either vote for or against. I think we're all probably going to pick criteria and talk about it, but in advance of that, with a growing community and a growing region, development is hard and challenging, especially to those people who planted a stake here many years ago. I got here in '83, and Parker was different back then. And for better or for worse, that's for somebody else to decide. It all depends on your perspective. And with development and property rights, things change, and master plans change, and the community changes, and you try to hold on to what we had, the intangible of small town community. And the unfortunate part is, as we grow, it becomes disjointed at times and affects what someone thought was a given, was open land next door to them that somebody else owned that they thought would never be developed or could never be developed or likely will not be developed. And we're here at this time, and we have to take a look at our requirements and apply those to the application that we have at hand, which is zoning and annexation. So with that, I'd like to focus, for me, it's the commercial piece. Crowfoot is a connector from Parker to unincorporated Douglas County to Castle Rock. And it is growing not only because of the town of Parker, it's also growing because Castle Rock as well is also developing on the other side, and it's becoming a very important route. I would call it parallel route to Parker Road. It is going to be improved by the town of Parker, by Douglas County, and by Castle Rock here in the upcoming 5-10 years. So it is going to be widened because of the development that is occurring along that corridor and around that corridor. And with that, the need for services is going to be primary. And as one of the maps indicated, that it was not services were not ample and plentiful, or sites were not there for that type of development. So. To me, I believe that this application has presented a lot of information, and to me, I would just like to call out there's been a significant change in the area to warrant a zoning change, and I appreciate the applicant's desire to work with the surrounding neighbors. Thank you.
Councilmember Wilkes.
So, my papa moved here in 71. I've been here since 83, so I get it. And I remember with his farm out off of Living Good Hills when Aurora was coming to butt up against it with the single family, and I just remember going through that. So my biggest concern is what Douglas County could do with this land if we don't have control over it, and how much worse it could actually impact our single-family homes. And I'm torn because when I'm looking at the 9 criteria, for me, I hear the comments about specifically number 9, if we've got adequate waste sewage disposal, but more specifically the schools and the parks and the recreation. And if we're at 12 units per acre, and I consider the average age of the people living here and their kids, I mean, I have kids from 2nd grade to senior in high school, and I know that our schools are actually struggling to have enough teachers and enough room in the classroom. So I really am torn between protecting what's there and knowing that if we annex it in and we have the control over it and we're able to protect to the best of our ability and work with maybe bigger setbacks or larger fences or ways to still protect the single family residents that are there, versus if we don't and Douglas County comes in and says, well, here's some storage units and let's throw a couple gas stations and let's make the whole thing urban commercial. And I just feel like that would be very detrimental. So I'm looking to my fellow council here because for me, this is a first for me. And I'm open to any feedback that you guys can give me on this because that's really where I'm at right now.
Councilmember Hefta?
Well, as Councilmember Dyak has stated so eloquently, nice job, John. The character of the community has changed over the past 30 years. Parker has changed. And again, are you growing or are you dying? And this community is growing. So how can we satisfy the need, as Councilmember Wilkes said, to ensure our community grows in a way that our residents actually want, and with responsible developers and landowners? Mr. Trevey offered excellent insight, thank you, Mitch, into this project. He stated on the record that he's been looking at this piece of property for 15 years, trying to get the proper group of individuals into this property, the right developer that would work with the town of Parker meeting the land development ordinance. So 15 years is a very long time. So thank you, Mitch, for hanging in there and working so hard. But also to Avalon Bay, the past couple of years, I have seen you work hard with the planning department and Mr. Fusa to come to terms with whether this is something you can take on or not, because the town of Parker has so many requirements. And consistently over the past several years, you have come to the table and you have reworked your plans. And now tonight you offer again to rework some of those plans to take into consideration the homeowners that spoke tonight on the fence issue and perhaps the setback issue as well. You're still willing to come to the table and work on this issue with them, and that is greatly appreciated. Not all developers do this. And your application, Avalon Bay, was very well written, and it addressed many of the issues. So in my professional opinion, reading this application, you have met the 9 criteria set forth by the town of Parker in the land development ordinance. Thank you.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is a tough one for me too, but I agree with my fellow council members, especially Councilmember Wilkes. Maybe the lesser of two evils, but bringing the town of Parker we have more protection versus what Douglas County. But I do sympathize with the homeowners too, and hopefully if this moves on, I would like to see in a site plan review more work done for buffering if possible, or fencing. But I also agree that the 9 criteria has been met. Thank you.
Councilmember Barrington.
This is, I think, hard for all of us. We all have heart, but do we govern with our hearts, or do we have certain criteria that we have to follow. I agree with several of my fellow council members. We had a situation just a couple of years back where homeowners came out very upset because there was a senior center that was going to get built in their backyard. And for one reason or another, it didn't happen. And now here we are, and now a gas station is going to be built there. And they are even less happy with that. So I agree with Councilmember Wilkes that I believe we will have more control over the situation. And I do believe that the 9 criteria have been met.
And Councilmember Rivero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everybody, tonight. I appreciate maintaining decorum in this room. I appreciate everybody's presentations. I thank the Wilsons for their comments. You beat me by a year. I've been here since '89. I, too, have seen the same changes. But I got involved in my community. I ran for office. And I can say the one thing that we do, and I believe we do it better than Castle Rock, I believe we do it better than Douglas County, is maintain what Parker is. And the one way we can do that is to ensure that when these people ask to become our neighbors and they ask to come into our community, that they do it the right way. Not only is it your right to own your property, but it's also the private property right of Mr. Coyle to sell his property. And Mr. Coyle has a right to sell that property, and these folks have a right to buy that property. But we put burdens on that property. That property has to have so much green space. That property has to pay for this road that's already been built before they even build it. They've got to pay for this, before they even build anything, they got to pay for a road that we already, our community decided need to be built. Lights, trail connections. As I believe Mitch stated, that was more than the cost of the property to Mr. Doyle. Was the previous, the burden's already on this piece, yet they still wanted to build in our community. That to me says we're doing something right. That to me says that they're willing to put up 2 years of negotiations. And this is where I'd like to give my kudos to staff and to Avalon Bay and Norris Designs. 2 years they went back and forth, talked about site heights and talked about different things. And of course, Avalon Bay, rightfully so, asked for everything, including the kitchen sink. We said, you can't have the sink, but come back to us. And we figured it out. And we've got a commercial corner that is going to answer a need. And I think Mr. Wilson recognized that there is a need in that area. And I think Avalon presented that need also. Is it going to get a grocery store? No, but you'll get one close eventually. It is done through a good process. We have a good process in this building. We have an incredible staff in this building. One thing I do want to recognize is the Avalon Bay's and Norris Design's ability to come in tonight and present their case. Too often do I see people asking to become members of our community that don't even sit in those same chairs. They put the burden on Julie and her team to ask to be members of our community. They don't even show up. Not only did you guys not show up, you brought everybody. And I appreciate that, because what if the questions were here and then we wanted the questions asked? Now, granted, it's a little bit gray because we've got site plan questions, but at the same time, we're trying to ensure that you're going to be a good neighbor, you're going to be a good part of Parker, so we want to make sure that those questions could be answered. Sometimes those, you guys don't, not you guys, but some developers don't show up. You guys showed up. Not only did you show up tonight with an incredible presentation that I believe answered a lot of questions, but you showed up the last 2 years, and you worked with our team. I think that the biggest and most important question, obviously the first step is annexation. Are we going to allow you into our community? Yes, and then concurrently, the same next question would be zoning. Are we going to allow you to change the zoning from what I assume is A1 Douglas County to PD? PD, planned development, or PUD in some words, is a negotiation. It is simply the ability for somebody that wants to come in and say, we want to do this, and a town staff to say, you can, but you've got to think about this, this, and this. It's not Euclidean like it is back east. We don't get to tell them, you're going to put a gas station here. You're going to put a bank here. You can only build a building here. We get to negotiate that. That's part of the West. That's part of transferring land from an agricultural use to a more, I hate the word, urban use. I've been on the other side. My parents are up in northwest corner of Elbert County. They got encroached on by Aurora. I get it. I do. We've got horse property up there, and I fully get it. I really, really do. But I also know that this is the best development we can get that's going to be able to be successful. I also appreciate that these are developers, owners, and operators, and not turn and burns, because we get those too. And we don't get the ability to say, are you going to own this? And they say no. We don't get to say no. We can negotiate with them, but Federal Fair Housing and Colorado Fair Housing ties our hands. We've got 9 criteria in front of us tonight that we're weighing on. Specifically, I'll call out criteria number 5, circulation and roads. Not only are they adequate, they're going to be improved. We're going to gain trail access. We're going to gain a burden that this group of citizens took on to build a road. We're going to get some of that money's alleviated. We're going to get a signal help paid for. So not only is it adequate, but it's also improving our community. And number 9, because Mr. Wilson brought it up, and I think it's on everybody's minds because there's a lot of hubbub and talk, and I believe some of it is false, water. One of the things that these folks have to do is petition Parker Water. That's what makes great thing about coming into Parker is they have to go to Parker Water and say, we want your water. I trust Parker Water. Parker Water is looking at renewable sources. They're getting off the aquifers. They're looking at the Northeast. Not only are they're not, I'll tell you this right now, they're not dry farming. They're working for secondary uses on farms up in the Northeast looking for renewable sources. So not only do we ensure that they're going to build a product that is a good neighbor, but we also ensure they're not going to harm our aquifers. Because in the Douglas County, that's not a guarantee. If they don't go to Parker Water, that's not a guarantee. We get them to go to Parker Water. We also get them to match our building codes. I, too, find that adequate posting. I find that they match the LDO, and I find that they match the 9 criteria. Thank you for your presentations tonight.
All right, council, with that, if there's no further comment, I will entertain a motion on ordinance number 2.281.
I move to approve ordinance number 2.281 on second reading.
Second.
Motion is made by Dyak, second by Hendricks. Rivero.
Aye.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Wilkes.
Aye.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Next, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 3.361 on second reading.
I move to approve ordinance number 3.361 on second reading.
Second.
Motion is made by Dyak, seconded by Hefta. Rivero.
Aye.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Wilkes.
Aye.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Lastly, I'll entertain a motion on the annexation agreement.
I move to approve the Coyle Perkins annexation agreement.
Second.
Motion is made by Rivero, seconded by Hendricks. Rivero.
Aye.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Wilkes.
Aye.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Next up on our public hearings is the Newland Crossing filing with Lennar Colorado LLC. And do we have Alex? Oh, it's Julia again. Great. All right, so we will open up the public hearing at 8:34 p.m. on Newland Crossing filing 2. Julia, you're back.
Good evening. Thank you again, Mayor and Town Council. The subject property is part of the Newland Crossing Plan development that is already approved for future mixed-use development. The applicant, Lennar Colorado LLC, submitted a final plat to create 109 residential lots along with required parks, open space, and trails. The final plat requires a public hearing due to a vacation of a public right-of-way tract that was previously dedicated to the town in filing 1. The Town Council had previously approved the PD zoning and a sketch preliminary plan for the Newland Crossing PD. The subject property is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Main Street and Chambers Road, adjacent to the Carousel Farms and Stonegate residential neighborhood. To the south by Main Street, to the east by a church and the Carousel Farms residential neighborhood, and to the west by Chambers Road. The applicant is proposing a final plat for future residential use containing detached single-family homes as the first phase of the development. The proposed final plat for filing 2 is a portion of the overall Newland Crossing PD. The final plat has a total area of 79.3 acres and creates 109 lots and 12 tracts. The proposed lots will be developed with single-family homes while the tracts are unbuildable until the applicant submits a future replat application to create additional lots for residential development. The applicant has completed a master utility, traffic, and drainage study for the entire Newland Crossing PD that was reviewed by staff and determined to be acceptable. The prior approved plat for Newland Crossing PD filing number 1 created and dedicated land known as Tract L to the town to the town for right-of-way, which is shown in yellow on this slide. The applicant has performed additional design work for a future road in the right-of-way and determined that the right-of-way must be realigned. As a result of this design change, the applicant has requested that the town vacate the original right-of-way, and they will again dedicate land to the town for the revised right-of-way that supports the updated road design. Final plat applications are typically processed administratively. However, the municipal code requires that applications involving right-of-way vacations be decided by town council. The final plat application also requires that a road connection to Newland Gulch Boulevard be made within the adjacent Carousel Farms neighborhood. This road was originally planned to connect from the northwest to minimize impacts to the adjacent Parker Bible Church property. However, the applicant has proposed an alternate design that connects from the west and requires a right-of-way dedication from the church to the town. The alternate design has been reviewed and approved by the Engineering and Public Works Department, subject to the dedication of necessary right-of-way. The applicant has reached an agreement with the church for conveyance of this right-of-way at an agreed price, and the church has provided a signed right-of-way deed for dedication to the town. The right-of-way dedication must be accepted by the town through a resolution in accordance with municipal code. The town requires applicants to enter into a subdivision improvement agreement, SIA, where a development application includes public improvements. The types of public improvements required for the Newland Crossing PD and that are addressed to the SIA include, but aren't limited to, design costs of the Main Street median, landscaping, public roads, traffic signals, streetscapes, just to name a few. The proposed final plat is consistent with the previous town council approved sketch and preliminary plans. Staff recommends that the town council approve resolution number 23056, Newland Crossing filing number 2 final plat, and Newland Crossing filing 2 subdivision improvement agreement based on staff recommendations. That concludes my report. I believe the applicant's here if you have any questions, but they do not have a presentation.
Okay, great. We'll go with questions for staff first, and then we'll sure have some for y'all from Lennar, so don't worry about that. Councilmember Hefty, you want to kick us off? On staff questions?
No.
Okay. Councilmember Welks.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Dyack.
No questions.
Councilmember Hendricks.
No questions.
Councilmember Barrington.
So will there be any sort of like a negative effect to Carousel Farms or the church? They're agreeable?
They're agreeable. They've come to an agreed price. The agreement to convey that to the town has been negotiated and submitted and ready to be recorded if it's approved.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rivera.
Yeah, this is deja vu. Is there a posted sign there that says future road to be connected in Carousel Farms?
That I might need to ask Public Works for. I'm not sure if there's a posted sign there.
It was always meant to be. It's on the plan. I just know that Bullock Court loved Carousel Farms, and now I'm sure Carousel Farms loves this Lennar property. All right, thank you.
All right, with that, council, do you have questions of the applicant if I bring them down?
Yes.
Great. Come on down, Representative Lennar. If you will introduce yourselves and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Brian Stockton. I'm the Director of Land Development for Lennar, Colorado, 9193 South Jamaica Street in Inglewood.
Great, thanks, sir.
I'm Brian Wilson, Westwood Professional Services, 10333 East Dry Creek in Inglewood.
Great. Councilmember Hefta.
Yes. Can you just briefly talk about your dealings with Parker Bible Church property and how those negotiations went and if they're satisfied with the changes?
Yeah, we've been working with Parker Bible Church for as long as I've been with Lennar, which is a little over a year, and entered into agreements with them, purchased the property from them, and they've provided the right-of-way available to dedicate to the town.
And those agreements, how long has that been? A couple of years?
Been at least a year, 14 months. I don't know before that.
And you've come to fair negotiations?
Correct.
For the right-of-way?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything to add?
Councilmember Wilkes?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Dyak?
I'm good.
Nothing. Councilmember Hendricks?
No questions.
Councilmember Barrington?
No questions.
Councilmember Rivera?
No questions.
Usually they get you guys more, so you got off lucky. There you go.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I'm going to open up for public comment at 8:41 p.m. We have received 2 public comments by email from Linda Wilson and Siobhan Cox. However, if you're in the audience and you still want to provide your comment, you're more than welcome to. But now's the time if you want to come on up, introduce yourself, and I'll give you your 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Siobhan Cox of 42943 Vista Ridge Road, Parker, 80138.
Go ahead.
I'd like to express my concern about the wildlife, particularly the prairie dogs on the property at Newland Crossing. Wildlife relocators have estimated that there are over 700 prairie dogs on this property. There is land available again this year in Pueblo to which these prairie dogs can be relocated. USFWS at the Pueblo site said they will be accepting prairie dogs until at least October 31st of this year. However, as of Friday morning of last week, it is my understanding that Lennar did not yet have a contract with the relocators to start this project, a huge project to relocate more than 700 prairie dogs. It's my understanding that also that they would like to begin grading before the end of August. This is not enough time to do a good faith relocation of so many prairie dogs. Once a company is hired to relocate prairie dogs, it needs time to dust the burrows, install traps, and pre-bait. I've been told that USFWS requires 2 weeks between the dusting of the burrows and bringing animals to Pueblo. I would like to ask that the developer hire a relocator, if they haven't since Friday, as soon as possible, and then give the person or company enough time to truly make a good faith effort to catch as many of these animals as possible and take them to the refuge in Pueblo. A rushed, last-minute job should not suffice as a good faith effort. I visited the wildlife refuge in Pueblo last week, and I can tell you it is beautiful. The aim is to restore a functioning prairie environment, including releasing a small population of the highly endangered black-footed ferret. Prairie dogs are essential to any such environment and to the success of the effort to save the black-footed ferret. The prairie dogs at Newland Crossing can be part of this important restoration of the prairie environment east of Pueblo if sufficient time is taken to catch them and relocate them there. A rushed job ending with a significant percentage of these prairie dogs being killed because of time constraints is just not sufficient or adequate. Such a scenario would not meet the spirit or intention of the ordinance, nor would it take advantage of the opportunity that all of us here have to save our native wildlife. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Great. Thanks, Ms. Cox. Any other public comment? Come on down, sir. And if you would state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kenneth Ramsey. I live at 3862 Elm Avenue, Parker, Colorado, 80134.
Thank you, sir.
Winston Churchill once said, quote, "Americans can be relied on to do the right thing, but only after they try everything else first," unquote. Cooperation is working with others and doing what is necessary for a common purpose. What is cooperation? Just long enough to say we will not cooperate. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the common purpose of safely relocating the 700-plus prairie dogs at the Newland Crossing site. New homes are ready and waiting for these prairie dogs. We just have to get them there. Today, I am asking for cooperation from Lennar Corporation. What we are missing with this Newland Crossing project is enough time to execute the relocation of the prairie dogs on this site. Why are prairie dogs important? Prairie dogs are ecosystem engineers. Prairie dog tunnel systems are homes for many animals, birds, and insects. Prairie dog tunnel systems channel water into the water table, prevent runoff, prevent erosion, aerate the soil, and increase soil fertility. Prairie dogs are a keystone species that plays a unique and crucial role in our ecosystems. Without prairie dogs, prairie ecosystems cease to exist. In the Lennar Corporation 2022 Social Responsibility Report on page 29 is the title, quote, Alignment with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, unquote. These 17 United Nations goals encourage businesses across all sectors to help end poverty, protect our planet, and ensure prosperity for all. Goal number 15, protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainable management of forests, combat desertification, halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. Does saving prairie dogs' lives count towards protecting our planet? Absolutely. With cooperation from Lennar, these 700-plus prairie dogs in Newland Crossing will be saved. Let's save them. Saving them is progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any other public comment on this? Seeing none. Council, any further comments for staff? Questions for staff?
Mr. Fusa, I'd like to gain some clarity on an ordinance that we have that I think I was a part of. So the prairie dog ordinance, from what I remember, it was the ability for us and applicant developer to facilitate a phone call to a nonprofit entity so they could remove the prairie dogs. Is that a fair statement?
So I'm going to answer, that's not referenced in the code.
Okay.
There's no reference to a phone call or anything
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
okay.
So the Prairie Dog Management Ordinance adopted by the town, approved by the town council, requires that applicants on parcels having prairie dogs and prairie dog colonies do an evaluation of relocation, but doesn't require relocation, although it does promote it. It requires, after that evaluation, if there's extermination of the prairie dogs in their colony, that humane means and methods, as defined by the code, be utilized for that purpose. So it really sets up a, so that's what the code requires of an applicant, Lennar and others. It supports and promotes relocation, does not require it. When extermination is required, humane means and methods are necessary to be utilized. There's a certification that an applicant has to complete, sign, and return to the town, confirming or verifying that they have adhered to the ordinance. And there's also a 30-day pause before a grading permit can be issued from approval that allows an applicant and the prairie dog advocacy community, doesn't say that that's what it's for, but the reality is it's kind of a, if an applicant's late to reviewing and trying to comply with the ordinance, that 30-day pause gives them a chance to review and determine how best to comply with the ordinance before a grading permit is issued and grading activities commence. I think it's kind of one of the little-known secrets of the ordinance is that it puts the town in the role of kind of being a facilitator, and that's what staff does between applicants and the advocacy community. There's been, no doubt, lots of growth and development impacting that form of, and species of wildlife, that form of the ecosystem. But there's been several successes, which by good faith efforts of the advocacy community and good faith efforts of applicants and developers have resulted in either total or partial relocation of prairie dogs. Again, not required by the ordinance, but where the parties work together and they work together in good faith, that has been one of the outcomes. There are different views of what's a successful outcome. Some think that is a successful outcome, others do not. So that's kind of my filling in the lines between the text beyond, no reference to a phone call, though, Councilmember Dyak.
Thank you. So I guess based on those successes, that 30-day window was ample enough to for us to facilitate a arguably successful outcome.
It's our experience at the staff level that the successful outcomes have occurred when the advocacy community and the developer have engaged earlier than the beginning of that 30-day window. Because this process, compliance with the ordinance can be done in 30 days or less. That typically would be an outcome where the animals are exterminated humanely. Relocation takes more time. And so typically our experience is that where the advocacy community and the developer engage early, before the 30-day window from final approval triggers, that seems to reflect the reality of the challenges and difficulties of relocation. I'm not saying that's impossible or not feasible in this case with Lennar and the advocacy community for Newland Crossing. I think there's still time if they wanted to do that. The code doesn't require it. Staff does not say it's required. We facilitate where we can. And sometimes there are different outcomes all allowed by the ordinance.
And I mean, to me, as a person who was a part of that, we tried to strike a balance. I think that was actually probably a John Fusa term, strike a balance, to identify what that time frame was that would be good enough for advocacy, but not hold up development. So, I think with that, if there is a greater need, we should probably, maybe think about revisiting 30 days or putting on the checklist a higher priority to have someone make a call or communicate or however that is. But thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Rivera?
Just a quick question. I think that, as you saw in the last hearing, this is a public hearing, and we sit in front of you tonight as judges, as a quasi-judicial board. The question in front of us deals with the vacation of a public property, or public right-of-way. That's the question in front of us tonight. And the prairie dog question was triggered, and the ordinance gets triggered in a previous action with the planned development. And so tonight in front of us is a right-of-way question. And that's the question we have to hold and rule on tonight. So before we go too down in the weeds, we've done incredible work. We had nothing before, and to the activists in this room, we did create an ordinance through education, and we do appreciate that. But the question tonight is whether or not we vacate a right-of-way because a road had to be moved by design. So I just want to keep council in this quasi-judicial realm on task.
All right. Council, any other questions for applicant or staff? No? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Thanks, Director Fusa. Close the public hearing at 8:54 and bring it back to the council in a reverse order. Councilmember Rivero, we'll start with you.
No, I feel this is a needed vacation. The road needs to slip a little bit. They gained access from the church. They need a little bit of the public previous dedication to make the lots work. I'm in favor.
Okay. Councilmember Barrington?
So we can't give the applicant an opportunity to address public comment, or no?
I
don't know what
If
the
you wanted to,
ruling-
I can reopen the public hearing.
We've kind of moved on, I think.
I've already stated my point.
Did you want to hear from the applicant on that?
Can we have them get with staff after this? And I've
Yeah, I know Director Fusa has been working with Lennar in his office. Yep.
all right, then I don't have any comment.
Okay. Councilmember Hendricks?
I agree with Councilmember Rivero. No comment.
Councilmember Dyak?
I'm good, thank you.
Councilmember Wiltz?
I don't want to get yelled at, but all I'm going to say is connect. And then no comment.
Councilmember Hefta?
Seeing that there's no financial impact to the town. The right-of-way is proposed to be dedicated at no cost to the town. So I am in favor of this.
All right. I will entertain a motion on resolution number 23-056.
I move to approve resolution number 23-056.
Second.
Motion is made by Dyak, seconded by Wilkes. Rivero.
Aye.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Wilkes.
Aye.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. I will entertain a motion on the final plat.
I move to approve the Newland Crossing filing number 2 final plat based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion is made by Dyak, seconded by Hendricks. Rivero.
Aye.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Wilkes.
Aye.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Lastly, on the subdivision agreement.
I move to approve Newland Crossing filing number 2 subdivision improvement agreement based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion is made by Dyak, seconded by Hendricks. Rivero.
Aye.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Wilkes.
Aye.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Next up is our ordinances. Ordinance number 1.582 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance to approve the right-of-way purchase and sale agreement by and between Savannah Properties LLC and the town of Parker for a portion of Lot 22A, Block 1, 20 Mile Village, filing number 2. Who is sitting in for Mr. Ekstrom? Here he comes.
Can you hear me okay?
Can.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thank you for having me. Tonight I want to present Ordinance 1.582. It's a right-of-way purchase and sale agreement for a transaction that's related to the Dransfield Road widening project. So the acquisition location is at the northwest corner of Stage, Run Road, and Dransfield. It's the dental office, if you're familiar with that area. It was at one time a hamburger place that got converted to dentist. So that's the location. Some background. In November 2022, Council approved Ordinance 1.570, authorizing staff to proceed with good faith negotiations for needed right-of-way and temporary construction easements necessary to construct Dransfield Road widening project. Right-of-way and easements are needed from 4 property owners along this project, and this ordinance addresses the acquisitions needed from Savannah Properties for a portion of Lot 22A, Block 1, 20 Mile Village, filing number 2. Approximately 834 square feet of right-of-way is needed to accommodate traffic facilities, new sidewalks and curb ramps, and approximately 3,829 square feet of temporary construction easement is needed to accommodate construction to reconstruct portions of a private driveway and to restore private landscaping and irrigation. The total cost for this acquisition is $43,050, excluding closing cost, and funding has been appropriated in the 2023 Urban Renewal Projects Fund. An ordinance is required to approve the right-of-way purchase and sale agreement, and the project cannot proceed without its approval. So here's just a quick illustration of the temporary construction easement. Looks like, well, I mentioned it before, hard to read, 3,829 square feet there in blue. And the right-of-way, just a small little triangle at the corner of the property. 834 square feet of permanent right-of-way is necessary. So with that, staff recommends town council approve ordinance 1.582 on second reading, and I'll take any questions.
All right, we'll go for staff questions. Councilmember Hendricks?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Barrington?
No questions. thank you.
Councilmember Rivera?
No questions.
Councilmember Dyak?
Questions?
Councilmember Wilkes?
No questions.
Councilmember Hefta?
One question.
Okay.
On the financial impact, can you just elaborate a little bit on the funding that has been appropriated for this acquisition in the Urban Renewal Projects Fund?
As far as, can you be more specific? The budget has been approved in the 2023 budget. So,
Okay.
Yeah, is there
No.
anything specific?
No, I just was wondering if that was in the budget and for this. Thank you.
Excellent. We're going to go ahead and open up this for public comment at 9:01. Anyone from the public wishing to make comment? Seeing none, we'll close it at 9:02 and bring it back to council in the same order. Councilmember Rivera, final thoughts, comments?
No, this is is this the last piece?
No.
No.
There'll be 3 more.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm coming next Monday night
This
with
is-
another one.
So the end of a long journey, but never
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
In the middle of a long journey. Well done, and well, it's going to be a great improvement. I think we've stated before, it's much needed. Second lane, much needed. We get backed up past the post office now just for Main Street. So, and we get all kinds of, I've seen wonderful creative ways to turn left onto Main Street and or Stage when traffic's backed up. So much needed, and keep the good work up, sir.
Councilmember Barrington?
Yeah, I agree. I would support most anything that supports a safe and healthy and ADA compliant community, and also that helps keep traffic flowing.
Councilmember Hendricks?
Ditto, thank you.
Councilmember Dyak?
No comment.
Councilmember Wilkes?
No comment.
Councilmember Hefta?
I support this. Thank you.
Thank
With that, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 1.582.
I move to approve ordinance 1.582 on second reading.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Hefta, seconded by Rivera. I'm sorry, seconded by Barrington.
I
Rivera?
know I sound just like him.
It's getting late. Rivera, do you vote? Aye. Sorry, Barrington, Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Wilkes.
Aye.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Last up for tonight is contracts over 500,000. Contract modification, Hilltop Road, Canterbury Parkway Area Improvements, CIP 22-039, contract modification. Mr. Grabchek's here.
Hello. Hello. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council.
Thank you.
This item is for the modification of the construction contract for the Hilltop Road and Canterbury Parkway area improvements. This construction project is to improve this traffic safety in the area of Hilltop Road and Canterbury Parkway, and the construction is already mostly complete. The original project improvements included construction of a downstream water quality and detention pond located in town open space. Due to concerns with budget and timing the roadway construction within the summer break window, the full drainage improvements were delayed and temporary measures were bid with the project instead. This vicinity map shows the areas of improvements. The green lines denote the turn lane improvements that are currently wrapping up construction, and the blue shape denotes the water quality and detention pond. This pond would receive runoff from inlets on Hilltop Road, represented in those purple squares up there, draining about 7 acres of roadway. The original contract was awarded on May 1st and came under engineering estimates, allowing the budget to support the full drainageway improvements. 53 Corporation, who was awarded the contract, has successfully completed town pond projects in the past, and on June 20th, Council approved single-source contract negotiations for the additional pond work. This work was negotiated to a fee of $474,957, well under the engineering estimate. Construction of the turn lane improvements is on schedule and nearly complete. The proposed drainage improvements are well outside of the roadway and would not significantly impede school traffic operations. If approved by council, this work would be completed by at least December 18th, but much likely much sooner. At this time, staff recommends approving the contract modification. Any questions?
Questions for staff? Councilmember Hendricks?
No questions.
Councilmember Barrington?
So the reason that this was taken off in the first place was just because we didn't think we could get it done in time, or it just should have been two completely separate projects?
It was mainly budgeting. So at about 60% design, our engineering estimates were coming in about $1 million over budget. The bid ended up coming in well under that, and then that allowed what was remaining of the budget was looking to be, it was more than the engineer's estimate of the pond work. So it was really more of a budgeting reason than timing. We could have looked to try and repackage it, but then that would push it to maybe the December window or the next summer window. But once again, we would have to get more funding for that window.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rivera?
So is it safe to say that it's more affordable by keeping 53 on the job instead of putting back out for another ask? So we're saving dollars in the long run.
Correct, yeah, we certainly believe so. It's, like I had kind of mentioned before, well under the engineering estimate, which was, I think, about $870,000. And so, once again, we felt like we were getting a very reasonable price.
Councilmember Dyak?
No questions.
Councilmember Wilkes?
So once we get this all completed, like it's set up now for the longevity, and this is supposed to improve all of the drainage for future years, and so hopefully something we don't have to redo here soon, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hefta?
No questions, thank you.
Great. That'll open up for public comment at 9:08 p.m. Anyone from the public? Seeing none, we'll close it at 9:08. Council, any final thoughts? Councilman Rivero?
No, I'm always in favor of drainage improvements. So I'm very, very happy. I'm happy with 53 Corporation. Obviously, I live close. They've done a good job. And I look forward to seeing what they can do with, I think, some needed drainage improvements over there with Tallman. So well done.
Councilmember Barrington?
I vote for no sinkholes on Canterbury Parkway.
Yeah.
Councilmember Hendricks? Councilmember Dyak?
Supportive.
Councilmember Wilkes?
No comment.
Councilmember Hefta?
I support this.
All right, then at that, I will entertain a motion on the contract modification of Hilltop Road, Canterbury Parkway area improvements.
I move to approve the staff recommendation as part of the regular agenda.
Second.
Motion is made by Barrington, seconded by Wilkes. Rivero?
Aye.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Wilkes?
Aye.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. With nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion is made by Rivero, seconded by Barrington. Rivero?
Aye.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hendricks? Dyak?
Yep.
Wilkes?
Aye.
Hefta?
Yes.
And we're adjourned at 9:09.